Hi guys, and welcome back to another football match reaction. I was debating on whether or not to do this because up until now I've just done Scotland match reactions, and I don't want to, with the SPFL RTG, I don't want to show bias to one particular side or anything like that. But I do like talking about football and my opinions on the matter. So I've decided for the Scottish Premiership this season, any really big games, like today's top of the table clash, for example, next week's Edinburgh Derby, potentially even tomorrow's game on TV. Any games that are on TV definitely will get discussed about. Obviously, this game I watched today on Sports Scene, the highlights, let's put it that way. Cough, cough, 3 p.m. blackout, all that stuff. But I've decided to definitely go ahead, give my thoughts on the game, player ratings, and how it went, and do it for any big games going forward. Any of the games on TV, like I said as well, will definitely be discussed. I'll discuss, obviously, matters of the game as we go along, but let's get straight into the player ratings. Starting off with the home side, of course, which we'll do in every video that isn't Scotland related. Kasper Schmeichel in goals for Celtic. Concedes 2 goals, of course. I don't actually think there's a whole lot he can do about either of the 2 goals. One's a 1v1, really good finish from Sockler, and the other one, massive deflection from the Graham Shinnie shot. Other than that, there was one occasion where he was a little bit suspect with the ball at his feet, which is the only occasion that has happened since he joined Celtic, from my knowledge. But I mean, a fair rating, we'll go for maybe a 5.5 out of 10. I don't feel like you can mark him any lower than that, but it's not like he made any significant saves or anything like that, and there was that one bit of shaky distribution. So I think a 5.5 is fair for Kasper Schmeichel today. Alistair Johnson had a good battle with Jack McKenzie a couple of times down the left hand side of Aberdeen, right hand side of Celtic. Going forward, there was a couple of dangerous deliveries from Johnson, a couple of saves from Mitov forced that somehow, or deflections that somehow never ended up in the back of the net. So I think giving Johnson a 6 out of 10 is a fair rating for today. I would say so. Austin Trusty, people go, oh, he's a centre half, he's playing in position, but the one out of position, given that he's left footed playing on the right hand side, it's not natural for him. A couple of okay moments defensively from him. Offensively, there was one where he really should get his head to, I would say so, but he just lacks that same presence that Celtic have when Cameron Carter-Vickers is at the back. I'll go, and it's his deflection. Maybe he could get out to it faster for Graham Shinnie. I'll go 5.5, same as Kasper Schmeichel for Austin Trusty. Liam Scales, certainly defensively anyway, he was the best of the back four today, I would say. He's really nailed that position down to be his own since last year when he was thrown into that Derby game unexpectedly, thanks to a few injuries at the time. However, he does get done for pace for the Esther Soccer goal. Potentially, if he's on his toes a little bit more, or he could be playing him offside if he's on his toes a little bit more as well. So, not a perfect performance from Scales. Best of the back four, though, I would say. So, I will give him a 6.5 out of 10. Alex Valle, contrasting halves from him, I think. First half, I thought he was pretty good, especially going forward. Second half, he got caught defensively a few times, and on that basis, I think a 6 out of 10, same as Alistair Johnson, would be fair for Alex Valle. Like I said, really contrasting halves from Celtic overall, and Aberdeen, if you're looking at it, but I'll go for a 6 out of 10 for Alex Valle. Arne Engels, certainly not the standout today that he's been in some of the games for Celtic. He had a few good moments with passes, a couple of efforts on goal that were just wide. Some of his corners were a wee bit hit or miss. I think a 6 out of 10 as well for Arne Engels today would probably be a fair reflection. He was indeed subbed off in the second half as well, although I think that would have happened regardless of result with the way that Celtic tend to make their substitutions. Callum McGregor, I think he controlled the game at times going forward. He did get caught in possession a couple of times, which is unlike him. Had an effort or two from range that was blocked. Um, I've seen him have better games than he had today. I thought he was slightly more impactful and slightly better than Arne Engels, though. So I will give Callum McGregor a 6.5 out of 10 for his performance today. Reo Hatate, first half, I thought he looked really, really good actually. If we were basing it just off of the whole first half performance and that happened in the second half, he probably would have been my man of the match with the way that it was going. However, second half was a little bit of a drop off. I do think Rodgers maybe made the wrong substitution when he came off. I think Engels should be going off before Hatate. I don't know if that's a fitness thing or what have you, but I thought of the three that started the game, he was certainly the best of that three. So I will give Hatate a 7.5 out of 10 for his performance today. Nicholas Kuhn, arguably Celtic's player of the season so far, and arguably the Scottish Premiership player of the season so far, but he didn't get involved as much as he would have liked today. A couple of good runs inside. His passing and finishing just appeared to be a little bit off today, but positive runs and decent link-up play at times. I would feel harsh giving him any less than probably a 6 out of 10, I would say, for Nicholas Kuhn today. Kyogo, he scores and gets an assist, so I think rating him any less than an 8 would probably be harsh on the lad. What more can you ask for? Second half, he does get taken off. I think there's an argument to be made that Rodgers should have left him on and maybe changed formation. Two strikers on, but I think it would be a disservice to a striker that scored and assisted to score him any less than 8 out of 10 for the game, although second half he did drop off a little bit. Dyson Maeda didn't impact the game at all today, which with the season that he's had was extremely unlike him. I don't know if he's a wee bit tired after going away with international duty or what have you, but usually whenever you watch Celtic play and he's on the park, he's non-stop running. He just wasn't at it at all today. I think he was definitely the worst player from a Celtic's perspective today, and I think unfortunately for Dyson Maeda that is going to result in him getting the worst mark out of the Celtic 11 and subs when we get to them. And I think based off today's performance, especially since he's the one that gives up possession for Aberdeen's second goal, which ended up being the last goal of the game and getting Aberdeen the point, I think probably you're looking at a 4, maybe even less, 3.5 out of 10 for Dyson Maeda. Unfortunately for him, I'm sure he'll bounce back pretty quickly based off the season he's had, but it wasn't great from him today at all. Moving on to the away team today, starting off with Dimitar Mitov. He had a pretty contrasting halves to the game as well. He made a couple of shaky moments in the first half. In terms of the Celtic goals, I don't think there's much you can do about either, similar to Schmeichel. However, what I will say about Mitov is he pulled off some very important stops, particularly right at the end, when Celtic could have snatched a winner. With the expected goals that they had as well, I don't think anybody could have begrudged them from getting that winner, although Aberdeen defended heroically and Mitov was part of that. So I am going to give Mitov a 7.5 out of 10 overall for his performance today, taking both halves into account. If he played the same way in the first half as he did in the second half, then his score would probably be a bit higher, and who knows what might have happened in the game. Nicky Devlin, didn't really notice him individually too much, but I don't recall him making too many errors either, so I'm going to go for a nice wee in the middle 5.5 out of 10 for Nicky Devlin. Rubezic was definitely the standout of the back four for Aberdeen for me today. He was just getting in the way of a lot of stuff, in particular in the first half. Hatate had an effort that looked like it might have been at least heading on target and it hit him in the head, and he needed a little minute after that to collect himself. But I think Rubezic was the standout member of the defence today for Aberdeen, and I am going to go for a 7.5 out of 10 for Rubezic today. Gavin Malloy, don't think he did too much wrong, but I don't think he was as much of a standout as Rubezic today, so I am going to give him a 6 out of 10 for today's performance. Jack McKenzie, as I mentioned earlier, a few good battles with Alistair Johnson. Other than that, I didn't really notice him a lot, to be honest, so I am going to give him a 5.5 out of 10 for his performance today. Actually, that's probably a bit harsh. I'm going to give him a 6. Change that to a 6. Graham Shinney, of course, he scores. It does take a massive deflection. Arguably could have been booked early on for leaving one on. I can't remember who it was. I think it was maybe Alex Valle at the time. Not a red card, of course, but it would have, for me, it was a booking. I thought he was pretty good in midfield for Aberdeen today. Good captain's performance from him. I'm going to go for a 7 out of 10 for Graham Shinney. Nielsen, didn't really notice him all that much in the first half or on the ball in the second half. He was kind of just one of those players that like you don't notice as much, but he doesn't do much wrong. So again, similar to some of the other ratings, we're going to go for a 6 out of 10 for Nielsen. Kiskinen, he's had a good season for Aberdeen, but today I don't think he was quite as impactful as he would have liked. There was a couple of moments where he did get forward and try and make things happen, but I don't think he was quite as involved as he would have liked to. By no means was a Dyson Maides performance or anything like that, but I'm going to give him a 5.5 out of 10 for his performance today. Leighton Clarkson, he had a chance to put Aberdeen back into the game in the first half, and it was just a really, really tame effort from him. You expect him to do much, much better with that. Valle was able to get his foot to it and keep it out, but it wasn't a difficult clearance from his part. He was taken off he was given a yellow card, taken off at half time. I'm going to give him a 5 out of 10 for today's performance. Jamie McGrath, 2 assists, and he had a good game as well, to say the least. His pass for the soccer goal is probably one of, if not the best pass, not just in the Scottish Premiership today, but in a lot of leagues that you would have seen today. I haven't, of course, seen every single game's highlights or anything like that, but the pass was very, very good from Jamie McGrath, and for that, I am going to give him the same as Kyogo, an 8 out of 10, but I am going to make him man of the match overall because, of course, he played a lot longer than Kyogo did, and 2 assists that were able to get Aberdeen back into the game as well from that point. Kevin Nisbet, not a great game from him, to be honest, taken off at half time, didn't really impact it at all. I'm going to go for same as Dyson Maida actually for him. Actually, I think that's harsh because Maida was at fault for a goal. So we'll go for a 4.5 out of 10 for Kevin Nisbet instead, because as much as it wasn't a great performance from him, he wasn't at fault for a goal. So there you have it. On to the subs that were used in the game now. Paolo Bernardo, I thought he looked positive when he came on. Good control of the ball. I think he'll feel a wee bit hard done by that he's not always in the starting 11 of that Celtic midfield, although it's probably one of Celtic's strongest areas, similar to the Scotland lineup in midfield, I suppose. But I am going to give him a solid 5.5 out of 10. I always think it's hard for subs to get a high rating unless they directly impact the game in some way. So we're going to go for a 5.5 out of 10 for Paolo Bernardo. James Forrest, he tried to get a few shots off, and he did end up getting some shots off, forced some saves from Mitov, and given the fact that I think he did impact the game a little bit more than Bernardo, I'm going to actually change Bernardo's rating to a 5, and I'm going to give James Forrest a 5.5 in the end. He probably should score on 1 or 2 occasions as well, so he might have got a 6 if that had actually ended up in the back of the net. Adam Ida, again, a few efforts on goal. He did actually score. It was chopped off, rightfully so, from obstruction from Alistair Johnson on Dimitar Mitov. I think he probably should have had 2 up top. Brendan Rodgers today to try and get that goal. He'd done it a couple of times last season when Celtic were struggling, and I think he probably should have done the same today, just to... 2 strikers on the park, Ida and Kyogo, different types of strikers, different options. So I'm gonna give Ida 4.5 out of 10 because of the fact that I don't think he was as good as Bernardo. Seems a bit harsh to give him that because of it. A similar rating to like the likes in Nisbet who just offered absolutely nothing. I don't think he'd offered nothing, but with subs, I do take into account that they were subs, and it's a shame that you can't really mark them any higher unless they actually directly impact the game. Luke McCowan, I'm going to give a 5.5 as well. He was probably unlucky not to score or assist a couple. I thought he looked really bright when coming on, and I don't think a start for Celtic is too far away, especially with the amount of games that Celtic are going to have to play this season. And I do think he looks a semi-talented player. He is the one that probably should get an assist or two after coming on from some cutbacks that he provided. However, unfortunately for him, that wasn't to be, but 5.5 out of 10 for Luke McCowan. On to the Aberdeen subs, starting with the one that had the biggest impact, let's say, for different reasons. So Aberdeen, of course, scored as well, and it was disallowed again, in my opinion, rightfully so. It does come off Duke's arm, and then there's an argument to be made that it comes off Duke's arm right at the very end, cleared off the line from him. It's difficult to tell with the images that I've seen so far, and of course VAR didn't give it, but we do know that VAR can be dodgy at times, so we'll see what that new YouTube show that Willie Collum does says about it. But Duke had a big part to play at both ends of the park with that regard. One went his way, one didn't. I will give Duke a 5.5 out of 10 because if it isn't a handball, it is a very important block off the line to save Aberdeen the point that they worked hard to get back into the game for. Sockler, of course, scores the goal that gets Aberdeen back up and running. He maybe could have had another effort at goal. He ended up being offside and it was a foul on Vahe anyway, I think it was. But I'm going to give Sockler the highest rating of the substitutes with a 6.5 because he scores to get Aberdeen back into the game. It does Liam Scales for pace. It's a really nice finish as well. Gives Schmeichel no chance. So 6.5 out of 10 for Esther Sockler. Jack Milne wasn't really on the park long enough to give him a rating, I would say. Nicky Devlin was in a similar boat the other night for the Scotland game. But for both Jack Milne and for Palaversa, I'm not going to give them a rating. I don't think they were on the park long enough to impact proceedings in any meaningful way. So neither of them are going to get a rating. I don't feel right giving them like a 2.5 or something like that when for me, Dyson Maida and Kevin Nisbet were comfortably the two worst players on their sides. So it doesn't feel right to give them a rating. On to the managers. Brendan Rodgers, I'm going to give him today a 6.5 out of 10, as much as I think he's got a lot right this season with substitutions, game plans, stuff like that. And, you know, this is the first time Celtic have dropped points in the league this season, so it feels maybe a 6.5 is kind of harsh, but I do believe that he got his subs wrong today at times. I don't think Hatate should have come off when he did. I think Engels was the one that should have been taken off before him, and I do believe that Celtic should have tried a change of formation and gotten Kyogo and Ida on the park at the same time. You know, the heroic defending at the end means that Celtic did drop points, but also Celtic's lapse in concentration in the second half also meant that Celtic dropped points. So a 6.5 out of 10 for Brendan Rodgers today. And Jimmy Talleen, I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10 actually. He made the changes at half time, and you know, one of them scores within the first 10 minutes, and Aberdeen looked a different team in the second half. And of course this season he's arguably made manager of the season so far with what he's got in Aberdeen doing. It'll be very interesting this next month for Aberdeen. This was crunch time for Aberdeen. They arguably, as much as they deserve the point out of today, with the performance in the second half, they arguably got away with one at the very end. Don't know if it was tired bodies or what, but they were facing a lot of shots at the end, and you know, a fantastic save from Mitov, and a block off the line, which we'll wait and remain to be seen what happens with that with Duke, whether it gets revealed that it did in fact hit his hand or not. Regardless, they get the point, and it's a very good point for Jimmy Tilleen's side. They're still unbeaten as are Celtic, and they've got some big games coming up. They've got the game against Rangers at Pittodrie, which in previous the previous seasons. That's been a good game. Definitely going to cover that one for ratings as well. And they'll want to take something from that game as well to try and stay ahead of Rangers and try and take advantage of the fact that they've got more games to play than both Rangers and Celtic. Who knows? They want to try and keep this run going as much as possible. Whether or not they're going to actually be title challengers or manage to split Celtic and Rangers this season remains to be seen. But I think Aberdeen, regardless of what happens, will definitely be miles ahead of everybody else in the league, out with Celtic and Rangers. I think it's still too early to say whether or not they're going to split the two, finish ahead of one or the other. If you were asking me, I think Celtic are going to win the league. I do think that the way that the games are going to balance themselves out, Rangers will probably get second and Aberdeen third, but they'll be hoping to change that narrative and finish second or even first. European football after last season would probably be a massive bonus for them anyway, but I think at this stage it will be, even though we're still early in the season, it will be hard for any of the other teams to catch up to Aberdeen if they keep even this slight run of form going. They'll be in good stead. Of course, they've got a Celtic again very soon in the Cup semi-final. Who knows, they might take the momentum from this into that and try and get themselves into a Cup final against either Rangers or Motherwell to start the season off, or will Celtic look to win the only trophy that avoided them last season, or potential Rangers or Motherwell winning that trophy. Rangers looking to retain, Motherwell looking to get to a Cup final again for the first time in a few years. But yeah, 8 out of 10 for Jimmy Talleen. I'm going to cover, again, like I said, the Kilmarnock and Rangers game tomorrow as well. Go through the ratings for that. We'll see what ends up happening there. Rugby Park, tough place to go for any team, not just Rangers. Kilmarnock's start to the season hasn't been as good as they would have liked, but with European football out the way now, maybe they're going to focus on getting that league form back up and running. But thanks again for all the new viewers and subscribers. If you like what you see, hit that like button and subscribe if you're new around here. And I've also got the SPFL RTG that you might be interested in if you're interested in this video as well, which is on the channel. Thanks again, catch you after.